Fiddzy here with my review of Godzilla vs. Kong. Very loose, very improv, very off the top of my head. I watched it last night, very, very late. So let's get into talking about it. This film, is it a big, stupid kaiju movie with a lot of stuff in it that doesn't make any sense? Yes, it is. And that is why it is fantastic. You know, the Monsterverse is very much kind of mirroring the old, like, Godzilla universe that we get in Toho, where it always starts off serious, and then as the films go along, it gets sillier and sillier and sillier, and that's just kind of what we get here as well. Compared to the other Monsterverse films, it is by far the silliest. They've just gone full on, like, let's just embrace the universe that we're in, and let's go crazy with it. Let's put the monsters center stage, and let's just have them fighting it out. They finally learned not to keep cutting to the humans every single time a monster throws a punch, which is fantastic. There was one little bit at the end where I was a little bit like, no, stop cutting to them, get back to the fight. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit. This review will contain heavy spoilers for the film, so if you haven't watched it yet, pause it, watch it, come back in 2 hours. So let's get into it. Yeah, it's a silly film, but it's a lot of fun. Do I have some criticisms? Of course I have some criticisms. You know, it's not... Is it the perfect kaiju film? I don't know. Probably not. I mean, maybe in terms of kaiju film, yes. In terms of a Godzilla film, no. Because it's more of a Kong film. It felt like it maybe should have been called Kong versus Godzilla, because Kong is like the star. He was great in it. He was fun personality. I love how the film opened with him just like sleeping, going about his day. He had a lot of character in it, a lot of personality. Kong really stood out as like the lead of this film. You know, all of the human characters were kind of there for like exposition and moving the plot forward and stuff. None, I would say, apart from like the kaiju blog team with Millie Bobby Brown and stuff in it. They were probably like the highlight characters, and the little girl that was communicating with Kong, but everybody else is kind of forgettable. I'll talk about them a little bit more later on. But Kong was like the main character, front and center, the one that was just kind of giving you the most performance, I would say. You know, the one who was it was his story, but that in a way at the end was kind of negative because it meant that Godzilla was very much sidelined. He was basically a villain, as Godzilla should be. You know, he should kind of be a villain anti-hero character. It was like he appeared at the beginning, which was good, and then he just kept appearing as an antagonist, and you weren't really spending any time with Godzilla like he was in his previous films. And then he appeared at the end for the big fight, and then of course we get Mecha Godzilla. And, you know, but it felt like it was Mechagodzilla in a Kong film. And this is where it did cut away that one time where I was like, stop cutting to the humans now. And that was when Godzilla was fighting Mechagodzilla. It kept cutting away to the people trying to revive Kong because, yeah, Godzilla had beaten Kong. Godzilla beat Kong in this film. Kong beat Godzilla at one point, and then Godzilla got straight back up and beat Kong. Is there a winner in this film? Absolutely, yes. They were both still standing, but I think it's very clear that Godzilla was the winner. Mechagodzilla, they both beat Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla was the loser. And Mechagodzilla was pretty cool. I loved how tall Mechagodzilla was, how big he was. His design, I'm not like 100% on. I guess it kind of fit like the world. He was very big, kind of very clunky. It wasn't a lot of the ones that you get in like Japan. They're a lot more like Mobile Suit Gundams, you know, that they're very space age, very sleek. So it was a very different look of Mechagodzilla. I wouldn't necessarily say it was my favorite one out of all of them. I do really like the Millennium Series one, but it was still pretty cool. I just loved the size of it. I loved how it was kind of controlled by the King Ghidorah head. And it took over at the end. You know, we found out that it had a pilot at the beginning, kind of like Pacific Rim style almost. And I was like, I mean, yeah, that's kind of true to like the later Mechagodzillas, but I like the first Mechagodzilla where it was literally just a robot. So I'm glad at the end it took over and just became just like a robot that was just out to kill Godzilla. But I love that twist that it was Ghidorah's head in there, and that it was almost kind of like Ghidorah was Mechagodzilla. In a sense, we got Mecha King Ghidorah in this as well, and that was really cool. I just wish they maybe spent a bit more time with that or acknowledged it a little bit more. You could have got some cool character stuff with Ghidorah in there. Instead, it was just a passing comment of, it's taken over, it's gone AWOL, they're using Ghidorah's brain. And then it was just like Mechagodzilla rampaging, killed off the bad guy very quickly who created Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla was just there for Godzilla and Kong to fight. I mean, it's not a criticism, that's how a lot of bad guys appear in these Godzilla films. They're just there at the end to have that great big fight. It's just, I thought it was just a cool concept that I kind of wish that we got more time to delve into, but I guess there wasn't enough time. I guess it's just me kind of being like, I want to just know more about the universe of this. But that final fight was really cool. I do wish that they didn't cut away so much to... Oh, sorry, my finger might have been over the camera there. I just wish they didn't cut away too much when Godzilla was fighting. Because at the end, we got to see them both, Kong and Godzilla, fighting Mechagodzilla. And then right at the end, Kong kind of got the finishing blow, which again, I'm not entirely sure about. Yeah, Godzilla powered up the axe with his atomic breath. That allowed Kong to get the finishing blow, but it would have been nice if maybe Kong did the arms and the legs and then Godzilla did the final blow with his atomic breath. I would have liked Godzilla to have ripped off Mechagodzilla's head. That way they both kind of did that instead of it just being like Kong wielding Godzilla's energy. So that's just a small critique there over that final thing. It ended with Kong holding up the Mechagodzilla head, and it's like, why couldn't it have been Godzilla holding up the Mechagodzilla's head while Kong is standing over like the beaten up body with like the arms and legs everywhere? I feel like there was just a missed opportunity there to have them that one final little bit of teamwork, and for Godzilla just to get that win with his own hands and not just his breath. But the fight was fantastic. I loved the fight in Hong Kong with just Godzilla versus Kong, and I love seeing like how they're going through like the city and stuff, and Kong's using the city like as if they're trees, and Godzilla's just smashing through the buildings. I do feel like, also the fight when they were on the boats as well. But I do feel like there is in this film particularly, there's not as much sense of scale in the monsters. The first Godzilla film of the Monsterverse did that so well. Unfortunately, in that film, they kept cutting away from the monsters. But when you did see the monsters, you felt the scale of them. You felt the weight of Godzilla. You got that a little bit in the second one, when Ghidorah first appeared. You really felt the size of it. There was still a lot of that scale, but also pulling back and just seeing monsters fighting from a distance as well. And then in this film, it was a lot more of just seeing them fight at a distance. You were always kind of at eye level or shoulder level. At times it felt like you were watching like a fighting game of them kind of duking out, or like you were watching Kong in like third person kind of a thing. It felt a little bit more video gamey. I guess that reflects the old films where they were just filming two guys in suits smashing around the prop city. So you did get that sense of it, but I guess when you look at it in the Monsterverse as a whole, this one definitely stands out the most as being so different because it has such a more light-hearted, such more of a fun, colourful as well, like tone. And you just lost that scale. Godzilla doesn't feel as big in this, especially when they were on the aircraft carriers and stuff. Godzilla felt smaller there. Obviously, I guess it's because you just don't really recognise the scale of what these aircraft carriers are because they're big ships. But yeah, you just kind of felt Godzilla felt a little bit small in this. Maybe as well it's just because cities are now so big as well that even a big Godzilla still feels small compared to the skyscrapers. There was a great shot where you saw Godzilla's foot come down in Hong Kong and then the camera panned up and he walked past. I would have liked a few more shots like that in this film, as well as with Kong as well. You do get quite a lot of those shots where you're looking up at Kong, especially when he was sitting on that throne. He was King Kong. Did anyone actually say at that moment, "It's King Kong, you look like King Kong"? That would have been a great time to say it when he's sitting on that throne. But that would be like probably one other small criticism is that you don't get the scale of the monsters like you have in the previous monster verses. But I do appreciate that kind of makes it feel a little bit more like a traditional Japanese kaiju film, where you are just watching them smash up the city as if you're just watching some wrestlers going at it. So yeah, the action was good and everything. The effects were amazing. Kong, especially, you know, his face and everything, all of his hairs on him, looked so good. Godzilla looked good when you saw him on screen. And the human characters, meh, bland. But let's talk about the actual film as well. Like, are there any other like little criticisms, little good or bad things? I would say as well, like I say, it feels like it can be a little bit standalone-y. One of the reasons for that as well is because all of a sudden in this film there's just futuristic technology for no reason, and that's silly. And again, it's very Godzilla. You have the Mecha Godzilla. Apparently now in this universe you have anti-gravity airships that can fly around through the hollow earth. There is a hollow earth with upside down world where there's like light and trees and everything. They definitely went full sci-fi, full fantasy with this. I do really appreciate it. Like, that is what you want in a Godzilla film, because it means that you can have crazier and crazier characters if they ever do continue with this monsterverse. They don't have to worry so much about introducing Megalon, a monster with drills for hands, or Gigan, a big cyborg Cyclops chicken from space. You know, they can actually go a little bit more crazy with it. Not everything has to be grounded now that they've got this stuff in there. You know, you already had Ghidorah that was like from space and stuff, but you can now push that a little bit more, because in this film they were just like, yeah, there is a company here that has technology that has flying cars, and we don't care. So, and speaking of, probably the worst character was the guy who was the one who like knew how to go down to the Hollow Earth. By the way, missed opportunity not to call it Middle Earth, because it was like an Earth in the middle. Yeah, his character was probably like one of the worst ones. Obviously, you had the bad woman and the bad guy, and like the bad woman's thing was, I'm a bad woman and you don't get much else. I'm bland. Okay, she gets killed. Bye bye. Not gonna miss you. She pushed the plot forward, and then you had the other bad guy who was, I'm a bad guy. I drink whiskey. I have money and futuristic tech. And he gets killed. He was bland. Doesn't really matter. But then you had like the main guy, and he was like, his brother was the one who did the expedition and died. But he was also like an absolute expert and knew exactly how to get down there. And he knew how to fly the airplane, the extremely complicated airplane that he's never seen before. He knew how to flick all the switches and what they all did and everything. That doesn't make any sense. When did he get that training done? Also, one other thing I will note as well is, you know, when he did the heart thing on King Kong, he like does all that and presses all the buttons, and then he's like, I gotta get out of here, because it's like going off, and he runs. Like, Kong's a big guy, right? Like, I don't know how big he is, 100 meters or whatever. And so it'd be like climbing up a hill. But the ship's on Kong's chest, and he presses all the buttons, and then he runs out, and then it cuts to the next shot, and it's him, like, Kong's in the background, and he's running down the street. Are you telling me in that entire time he got out, climbed down Kong, because he would have had to have climbed down Kong's body, got into the street and run away, and still managed to get far enough away from the explosion without getting affected by it? He should have just stayed in there and died. Like, you weren't really needed anymore. Just stay in the explosion and die. Like the bad guys, you know. The film's about Kong and Godzilla. So yeah, that was another little weird thing. But what else? I was saying something else. I just can't remember, because I'm just so excited about this film. There's just so much to talk about. I would have really appreciated a Megalon cameo when they went down to Hollow Earth, Middle Earth. You know, you saw those like little bugs? I think it would have been cool if they had like Megalon's face, or like Megalon's roar or something, because Megalon, you know, he was a monster that came from underneath the ground. That would have just been like a nice small touch in there. We didn't really see too much kaijus and stuff in that Hollow Earth. It is a little bit confusion though. Did Kong, or Kong's like people, Kong's civilization, did they make all of the stuff, like the big temple and the throne and stuff? Did they make that down there? And why were they at war with the Godzilla species? because it seemed like, you know, like Kong was very much like the hero and Godzilla was the villain, but then you find out that like that was like a big arena where the Kongs did like battle and stuff, and Godzilla is a protector of Earth. So who is the good guy and the bad guy here, really? You know, were Kong's people actually the bad guys? Why was there that war? I would love to actually get that. If they ever do any more of the MonsterVerse, hey, I'd be up for like a prequel, you know? I'd be happy just to go back in time and explore that time and find out, you know, what was going on there. Let's see them in their heyday. Because like, yeah, I've got a lot of questions about that world down there. Yeah, why were they so antagonistic to one another? And you definitely see in this that Kong is portrayed a lot more smarter. You know, he was doing sign language. As I said, he was very much a character in his own right, had a personality, and you can see that intelligence in there. Obviously, they gave him the axe as a weapon to use, and that shows a big difference from Godzilla. Godzilla was a lot more animalistic in this. At one point, he was crawling on all fours, which was weird to see for Godzilla. I was a little bit like, I don't know about this because they're showing Godzilla as such a stupid lizard. But then I'm glad when you had that scene where Godzilla was like pushing his foot on like Kong's chest and like digging his toes in. And then you could see that actually, yeah, Godzilla, he's smart as well. There was some character in there. He leaned in, they did that raw. And if he was just a beast, if he was just an animal, he would have ripped Kong's face off. But he didn't. You could see Godzilla was thinking, he was like, right, come on, that's it. I've beaten you. You know you've lost. I'm going back to the sea now, you know, or there's another problem here that we've got to deal with. So I'm glad that they did kind of keep that little bit there of Godzilla at the end. But I mean, as I said, we never really got enough of Godzilla in this film, I feel. And as such, he did kind of feel more like an antagonist and just a beast. I would have liked a few more little character moments with Godzilla, like we did with Kong. We got a good one at the end as well, where Godzilla was just like, he just roared at Kong at the end. And then he was just like, right, you know your place. You do what you do. I got to do what I do. Thanks for the fight, but I'm off. And then he just walks off. The weird camera angle where it's like Godzilla's got like a selfie stick as he walks off. That would have been another good shot where you could have got low and shown the scale of them two standing there. Instead, it was very much up in his face. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say at the moment. It's just like a mixed bag of like confusion. There was lots of like flashing lights and explosions and excitement, and Mechagodzilla turned up and there was epic punches and Godzilla fired his atomic breath and drilled through the earth. Apparently he can do that. He can just fire his breath down at the ground and blow a hole all the way to the center of the earth, yet his atomic breath can't snap Kong's axe in half. Like there was so many stupid things like that where if you sit there and you think about it, it's like, what is going on? How could we go from the very first Godzilla film in this franchise, and then now we're on flying aeroplanes, upside down, weird inverted hollow earths, and Godzilla's blasting atomic breath through the ground and everything. It's like there's Mechagodzilla. It's just crazy, but it was fun and I'm smiling and I enjoyed it, and it felt like the closest to a traditional Toho Godzilla film. And it was just good kaiju action, and I enjoyed it, and I'm very sad at the way it ended without any end credit scene. There's no end credit scene, and the rights have gone back now to Toho. So is that it? No more MonsterVerse stuff? There's so many unanswered questions. And you can now do so much with it. Now that you've just gone crazy with it, like I said, you can bring in Destroyer, you know? You can bring in Space Godzilla, Biollante, new creations, you know? Where was Rodan in this film? You saw at the beginning it said, like, defeated. Well, where was Rodan? Have a one where all of the monsters just turn up, destroy all monsters style, and fight in legendary style CGI. You know, that would be so good. So I enjoyed the film. There's elements in there that I can see where they can take it, but I don't know if it's going to continue. So I kind of feel a little bit like, was that it? Because it just ended. The film just ended. Godzilla and King Kong roared. Godzilla walked off. Kong went to the middle of the earth. And it was over in like 5 minutes. Like, after they beat Mechagodzilla. So I'm just sitting there like, what? No, more. Give me more. You've just got so good. You've just learned not to focus so much on the human characters when the monsters are fighting. Don't end it there. Please continue. Bring Gigan, Jet Jaguar. So yeah, very happy with the film. Very happy with the franchise, the Monsterverse franchise overall. I think it really stands with the Toho ones now as just a solid part of the Godzilla franchise, unlike the previous American one, which has become very sidelined. This one feels like it really stands with them. Well, if the rights are now back with Toho, I'm excited to see what they do, because they better up their game now, because these legendary ones were very good. So yeah, up your game, and let's get more Godzilla. Thank you, Godzilla vs. Kong. That was great fun, just what I needed. Main criticism is I wish there was a little bit more Godzilla in the Godzilla vs. Kong. Main positive was that the monster fights were just awesome and great fun, and I'm glad that they just embraced that side of the kaiju fights. So yeah, Godzilla vs. Kong, highly recommended.